Well, it'll make more sense by the end of the evening when I say I'm not sure we really understand or know how to deal with temptations. We're not going to do this great big study on trials and tests and tribulation and all the T words. We are going to read a couple of scriptures to prepare us for tonight and the next 2 weeks, where we're going to be looking at the 3 temptations of Jesus in the wilderness. I don't think that they were recorded for us simply as a nice story to tell us what happened after his baptism, but giving us some major clues to in our own lives about testing, trials, temptations, whatever. If somebody wants to go to James, he talks about temptation in his first chapter. Once we read the verses, then I'll just comment a little bit about 2 through 4 and then 12 through 15.
My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Blessed is the man who endures temptation, for when he has been proved, he will receive the crown of life which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desire and enticed. Then, when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death.
Now, I don't know if you picked up on it, but he started by talking about trials and talking about tests. Then as he moves further down, verse 12, he starts talking about temptation. And we sort of can superimpose all of them on top of each other, but we really shouldn't do that. A temptation is something, he makes it clear, is not from God. God does not tempt us. God will test us, but he won't tempt us. Because the nature of temptation is to try to draw you to appeal to something inside of you that's going to draw you into something that's going to separate you, bring you into sin, bring you into failure, bring you into a sense of worthlessness and all kinds of stuff. So the temptation has nothing good behind it. It's not drawing you towards anything good. Whereas, a test, a lot of us, we don't like tests, let's say. Let's be honest about it. How do you know what you know unless you're tested? So that the nature of a test is to it sounds kind of funny when I say bring out the worst in you and bring out the best in you simultaneously. It's a funny kind of thing. When I say bring out the best and bring out the worst, Solomon uses a proverb that will help us to understand that statement a little bit better. That when we're tested, the worst part of us ends up coming out in order to reveal the best part of us, if you would. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Proverbs 25:4.
Take away the dross from the silver, and there shall come forth a vessel for the fire.
What he's describing is when you have silver, in order to purify it, you have to heat it. But when you heat the silver, the dross comes to the top, you scoop off the dross, and now the silver is actually ready to go to the silversmith, the king, whoever, and is able to be used for something worthwhile, because now the dross has been driven out of the silver, so to speak. And that's what testing does. Testing brings to the surface and brings out of us what we really don't need. It's a good thing, testing. When you think in terms of refining silver, like Peter will talk about our faith being refined as precious gold, in his letter. It's not a pleasant experience generally, but it's a good one because the result is solid gold, it's solid silver, it's good stuff. So there's a big difference between temptation, which is trying to cause us to fail, and testing, which is actually proving us. They call that proving with metals. It's proving it, perfecting it, completing you. Jesus, we're going to see in these temptations, he was tempted. You read in Hebrews 2 and Hebrews 4 how Jesus himself was tempted. So it's not something that when we're being tested, let's say, we shouldn't be complaining about the test because it's a good thing. Now, Jesus told us how to pray when he said, lead us not into temptation. It's part of his prayer. And you say, well, see right there, no, we shouldn't be led into temptation. What Jesus was trying to say is, listen, I'm going to be tempted. In my prayer, what I'm asking is for the Lord to deliver me, to lead me, to deliver me from the temptation. And we've talked about that before in here. So what is the temptation? To sin, to go commit adultery? No, it could be, but no, even judging somebody unrighteously. That's a temptation for all of us. Something happens, and Jesus says, judge not according to appearance, but immediately we judge according to appearance. That's what we want to do. Yeah, I saw that. I know that, all this kind of stuff. And that's a temptation to do that. which will separate us from each other, separate us from God, if you would. We don't have time to really explore all of the different kinds of temptations and tests. It's just good to know that these trials are good. Temptations are not good. They're trying to appeal to our lust and our desire in the wrong ways. When we talk about the temptations of Jesus in the wilderness, we're going to read he was driven into the wilderness by the Spirit of God, specifically for these temptations that are from the devil, their temptation. For a son, their test. He's going to come out better than he went in, because he's a son. That's what we're going to talk a little bit about tonight. In 1 Corinthians 10, Paul is stressing how the children of Israel, when they came out of Egypt, this word all, they all walked under the cloud. They all went through the Red Sea. They were all baptized by Moses. He keeps using the word all. They all ate the same spiritual food. They all drank from the same spiritual rock, which was Christ, in the wilderness, this kind of thing. So he's really stressing this all thing in verses 1 through 5. But then he says, yet God was not pleased with all of them. But some nasty things happened out there in the wilderness. And so Paul, he moves on to say what some of those things were. He says that these things were written for our examples. A lot of people, well, I don't like reading the Old Testament. Well, that's really a shame, because you're supposed to learn from it. You've just thrown away a huge chunk of the Bible that was designed for you to learn from. Paul says, no, we're supposed to learn from. They were written for our warnings, for our admonition, because we haven't changed a lot. When you look at the brothers and sisters in the wilderness, and you look at the church today, you could kind of look at both of them and say some things just haven't changed that much. So the object is to look back with a view towards learning. These are examples for it. And so then Paul, 1 Corinthians 10, would you read verses 12, 13, and 14?
Therefore let him who thinks he stands take heed that he does not fall. No temptation has overtaken you, but such as is common to man. And God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will provide the way of escape also, so that you will be able to endure it. Therefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry.
So Paul's making us a promise. He says, listen, the temptations are going to come. He even uses the word overtaking you. We don't use that expression here. We talk about passing people on a highway. But in Europe they talk about, or in England, overtaking somebody. You pass them in your car. Temptations are going to overtake you. Not overcome you, but overtake you. That's just the natural part of living in this world. So the temptations are going to come. And he says, but I make you this promise. You're not experiencing anything that other people haven't experienced. If you think you're the only one in the world who's ever had this temptation, this has been going on a long, long, long time. As long as there's been humans, there's been these temptations. There's nothing unusual about it. And I make you this promise. And I know this might fly in the face of some of our 20th century theology and, he'll make a way of escape, a way to get out now. You remember the story of Joseph in the Old Testament? When Potiphar's wife gets a hold of his garment? Twice it says he left his garment in her hand. In other words, she got hold of him, and he didn't decide to try to reason with her or work his, he left, and he left the garment there. He was gone. He still ended up in prison, but God had provided a way of escape, which was called fleeing, running. Flee from idolatry. Get away from idolatry. Don't have anything to do with idolatry. Paul's telling us, he's touching on this thing with temptations and making us a promise that God will make a way of escape for us. Whether we choose to take it or not, now that's your choice. But you're not trapped. You're never trapped. Never. There is a way out. Let's go to the three temptations of Jesus in the wilderness. Tonight we're just going to do the first one. Next week the second, and then the third. The temptations are recorded in 3 out of the 4 Gospels. We're going to focus on Matthew.
Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. When he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, afterward he was hungry. Now when the tempter came to him, he said, "If you are the Son of God, command that these stones become bread." But he answered and said, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him up into the holy city, set him on the pinnacle of the temple, and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he shall give his angels charge over you. In their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone." Jesus said to him, "It is written again, you shall not tempt the Lord your God." Again, the devil took him up on an exceedingly high mountain, and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, "All these things I will give you, if if you will fall down and worship me." Then Jesus said to him, "Away with you, Satan, for it is written, 'You shall worship the Lord your God, and him only you shall serve.'" Then the devil left him, and behold, angels came and ministered to him.
Now when the devil had ended every temptation, he departed from him until an opportune time. Then Jesus returned in the power of the Spirit to Galilee, and news of him went out through all the surrounding region.
I like finishing with what Luke said.